And welcome to the Market of Influence, where I talk to influential people about influential things. Today, one of my favorites, Patrick Lyons. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Guy. Happy to be here.
Let's do it. All right, Patrick, take us through your. Let me start again. All right, Patrick, you do Patrick, your content creation in the health and fitness space. Can you talk to us about your brand development? How did you come up and position your brand as an influencer, and what can we learn from that?
Yeah, great question. So I got started in the world of fitness about 10 years ago now. I started fitness coaching online in 2015. June 2015 was my start. Did the first 3 years through another company and then launched my own business back in 2018. And in terms of how I arrived upon the brand that I now have today, it really was identifying what were the gaps in the target market, what were the things that I, as a consumer of the health and fitness industry, felt was missing or that didn't allow me to feel as welcome as I could have. So some things that come to mind are when I would go to the gym as like an early gym goer who didn't really know a whole lot about fitness and science and all that sort of thing, I felt kind of lost and out of place and like I didn't belong and like everyone else knew what they were doing and I didn't. And so that ended up becoming one of my brand pillars, was just like being friendly, where it was like I wanted the gym to be as welcoming of a place as possible. And by extension, I wanted my content as a creator to be friendly so that anyone coming across my content who probably was in a similar position to what I once was, being intimidated by that gym environment, I wanted to be the antithesis of that. I wanted people to feel like, oh, this guy has been where I am. This guy used to be intimidated by the gym, but he's now curating a friendly environment to where I feel comfortable and I resonate with this creator, Patrick. So that was kind of one thing. Another element was I was learning as much as I could from any source that I could, dating all the way back to when I was 9 years old, when I first tried to get into fitness, where I was just seeking out mentors online, not like a one-on-one mentorship, but more so, let me find some Army Master trainer like Ken Weichert, who was literally an Army Master trainer, who's teaching a myriad of different types of push-ups. And so I'm learning as I go. And then eventually down the road, when I'm like 15, 16 years old, I get a fitness coach. I'm learning from him. I'm consuming any source that I can online. But the kind of common thread between all these is, yes, I am learning from people who are experts in their craft, but it's almost just like a he said, she said thing, where it's like, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but I want to know what are the facts. And so I ended up learning the science behind all things fitness by directly consuming the current scientific literature around all things fitness, whether that be exercise, nutrition, sleep, recovery, or anything in between. And so that became the second pillar of my brand and content, which is evidence-based or science-based. That I didn't just want it to be, oh, Patrick says this, therefore maybe it's true. I wanted to go the opposite end of the bro science thing and go into actual science. So that kind of gets us to friendly and evidence based. And then, kind of the final pillar that I'm often thinking of is transparent, where I want to be as open and transparent as possible about what I'm going through, about what the realities are of the fitness industry, how to achieve your goals, that sort of thing, so that people don't feel like I'm gatekeeping and people don't feel like I am only showing a highlight reel of my life or what fitness is like, but rather I'm showing the struggles and the successes, the victories and the hardships, so that people can get the whole complete picture. And talking about like, what are the difficult things that I go through in my life that I now have to still kind of work around within fitness? Because everyone over the course of a year's time, on average, is going to have a couple of like difficult or adverse things that happen, whether it be a death in the family, a car accident, an injury, some relationship in their life that isn't going as they want it to. And realizing that even with those things happening, you can still make time for fitness and you can still prioritize it. And in fact, it will probably help you manage stress, makes it seem like a more realistic thing to incorporate in your life. So those have really become like the three core pillars of my content and brand.
So that's awesome. So let's talk about content pillars a little more. Somebody who wants to set up their social media presence, right? Build their brand. What do pillars do for content creators? How do these content guide your content strategy?
Yeah, good question. So it really makes it so that every piece of content you make has some sort of a purpose or some sort of an overarching sentiment that it fits within your messaging to potential customers, clients, that sort of thing. It's the idea that if you don't have content pillars, you're kind of just putting things out into the ether and not knowing like what is the purpose of this, how is it going to connect with people, what is my intent with my messaging. Whereas when you have content pillars, all of those are kind of answered at the forefront where you know exactly what you're hoping to get out of putting this into the world and how you hope to connect with others. And ultimately it connects to what is your brand's story and your brand's mission, and making sure that every piece of content somehow connects to that. Because if I'm creating content now, it's not just like, oh, what, piece of fitness content can I make today? It's more like, what is the story I want to tell? And chances are that story is going to pull from one or more of those pillars in any given moment. So if I'm thinking of friendly, if I'm thinking of transparent, and I'm thinking of evidence based, chances are I'm going to do one or more of those things, and that's going to more authentically convey my brand voice and more directly meet someone where they're at and what they need in hopefully connecting to my brand and vision.
Absolutely. And it's kind of interesting because people who work with content pillars in calendars and a strategy, right? These are the long-term successful content creators, as opposed to those who are just chasing whatever is trendy that specific day. So can you talk, you've spoken before in my classes about oatmeal, right? The morning oatmeal. Can you talk about the morning oatmeal and what it can teach us as content creators about content strategy?
Yeah, so the morning oatmeal for context is something that I quite literally have every single day. I had it before this talk that we're having right now, and I share it on my story every single day. And it establishes almost like a familiarity with me and a sense of consistency to where someone who is following me knows, like every single day, Patrick is practicing this habit of consuming the exact same breakfast. And that could seem monotonous, but it also leads to this sense of curiosity where people end up seeing the exact same thing so many times that they can't help but ask, like, Patrick, what is that thing that you keep putting on your story? Because it doesn't look like just like a bowl of bland oatmeal. There's a ton of ingredients that are mixed up within it. And depending on like what specific question the person asks, how long they've been engaged with me, like that allows me to know like what level of depth to go with them. But it also is somewhat of a funnel for me where they're expressing interest in this meal, and then I can send them the recipe and the video tutorial on how to make it. And especially if they then end up go and make it, that gives me a good indication like, okay, this person is probably in a position where they're kind of like ready, willing, able to start dabbling with this world of proper nutrition. And so then I can just ask them, like, by the way, are there any fitness goals that you're working toward right now? And then it just becomes kind of like a natural flowing conversation where I've already added value insofar as I've given them something for free, this recipe, hopefully something that they actually come to love. And whether they become a client of mine right then and there, a month later, or years later, it's kind of started to establish that relationship. So it's the relationship formation, and it's also the consistency where I'm a relatively small creator in the grand scheme of things. Like on Instagram, I have about 40,000 followers, and that's compared to, other mega fitness influencers who maybe have millions that aren't going to really be connecting one-on-one with the people following them. But because I am connecting with them one-on-one, and because they can see this level of consistency from me every single day, I can become kind of like a staple of their just like quick bite content consumption. And again, they know to expect it every single day because I am that consistent with it.
Yeah. And by the way, you have 50,000 on Instagram, but you're on TikTok, you're on YouTube, you're all over the place, and I've seen your work. It's quite impressive. Patrick, why is it? I mean, fitness is a place where there's so many content creators. The majority of them will create content for about 3 or 4 months and give up. What is it about consistency in the long term? What have you learned about why some people are successful in the fitness world in terms of content creation?
I think genuinely one of the biggest things is whether or not you have to put it as bluntly as possible, to have a financial incentive to do so. A lot of people who give up because there isn't a financial incentive. Because if you think of a fitness creator who maybe just has like a really nice body, they can go for a couple months just like sharing pictures or videos of them working out that looks aesthetically pleasing. But at the end of the day, that doesn't necessarily add a ton of value to the end consumer if there isn't something to follow it. You could surely, offer inspiration and motivation to the people who are consuming your content, like, oh wow, this guy Patrick, this girl, they look, great. I would love to look that way. And maybe that's a little bit inspiring. But if it ends there, then it's almost like the reason for your content creation ends there too. You don't have a reason to keep going. Whereas if you develop some form of product, whether it be something that is your direct service offering, your direct product offering, or a partnership with an external brand, if you don't do that, again, that mission can kind of end too soon, or you maybe don't even have the mission. But if you do have that product, then you have a purpose behind your daily creation. And hopefully that gets deeper and deeper to where it becomes more and more enjoyable for you as a business owner. That's part of why I've been able to keep going for so long. Like I've posted every single day since January 1st, 2019. That's over 6 years of daily content creation without a single day missed. And that hasn't really been a struggle. Like that's something I enjoy doing because I get to keep telling new stories, finding new ways to tell the same stories, finding new ways to connect with people. And it ultimately comes down to like my mission of helping to transform others' lives through evidence-based, friendly, transparent content.
Absolutely. And you have a business incentive, you have a coaching business. And let's talk now about the other thing, which is partnerships, right? So you sit in that sweet spot of nano micro influencers who, to me, are the most interesting part of this whole influencer relations world. You've done a couple of partnerships in the last 2 years. I've followed a lot of them. Some of them automatically come on my feed every time I go on Facebook. Talk about some of your favorite partnerships and what can we learn? What have you learned from those partnerships with these brands?
Yeah, so one that comes to mind and one that has just been shown to so many people is my partnership with Body Spec. And this might be one of the ones that you're referring to that you see every time you pull up Facebook. But Body Spec is a DEXA scan company. DEXA is dual X-ray absorptometry, and it's a way of measuring your body fat percentage, a breakdown of the amount of body fat you have, the amount of lean muscle or fat-free mass that you have, rather, and bone mineral content. And it does this regionally throughout your entire body. So you can see not just like your overall body fat percentage, but what's the body fat percentage of your arms, of your torso, of your abdomen, of your hips, of your legs, etc. And the content that I made with them is it's like a 30-second video, but they've shown it to millions of people because it's just performed that well. And it's my specialty of content, which is like 30-second or less explainer videos that break down the science behind technology and why it is beneficial to use. And I, in this 30 seconds, compare DEXA scan, which fewer people have gotten, compared to something called InBody. InBody is something where you just stand on these metal plates, you hold these handles that also have metal on them that has bioelectric impedance, which basically can measure via the amount of resistance that currents face throughout your body, what is your approximate body fat percentage. So then I compare them directly side by side. It's super visual, super dynamic, and it breaks down this concept in an easy to explain way. Part of why that's been such a fun partnership is because, one, I'm a nerd and obsessed with fitness science and tech. And so to be able to do that, to get a DEXA scan and to be able to do it regularly to compare my body fat percentage over time, that alone is just kind of a cool incentive for me as a creator because it's very up my alley. It's also a cool partnership for me because it's so in line with my brand pillars, like it inherently is evidence-based. DEXA is like the gold standard of body fat measurement across the scientific literature for fitness. And a lot of my clients are also in that realm of like they like data, they like science, because like that's probably part of why they're following me and or using me as their coach. So then it becomes a good fit in terms of, all right, Patrick has this partnership with Body Spec. I, as Patrick's client or maybe just follower who enjoys his content, want to know that information for myself. And therefore, I'm going to use Patrick's code And I'm definitely going to use Body Spec because even if there are other DEXA companies out there, that's the one I'm most familiar with. That's the one I'm getting ads for, that sort of thing. And then as time goes on over time, the more and more fitness goals that I pursue, the more reasons I have to get more and more DEXA scans. And then that accumulates to more content to tell more stories of like, okay, Patrick was at, 16.7% body fat. Here's what that looks like. Here's what that felt like. Now Patrick's at sub 10% body fat. Here's what that looks like. Here's what that feels like. And again, just allows me to kind of continue to tell that story. So it's a great fit overall.
That's awesome. And millions of people were introduced to you as a content creator. So I'm sure that blew up your channels as well. What are some things that you think most brands not understand about working with content creators?
I would say the most important thing is that brands have to understand the investment on both parts, both ends of the equation. And what I'm alluding to is I've worked with well over 100 different brands now. I just gave you one example with Body Spec. And the partnerships that tend to be the most enjoyable, that lead to the best content, and that have the most long-term potential are the ones that, for all again to be blunt, have good financial incentive. Because it's like if this is truly a business for a content creator and the only offering from this company is a product or a service, no financial gain directly, then it's kind of like how much time can I justify putting into this? Because it's not going to lead to business growth, development, anything like that. And then if other partnerships come my way that do offer financial incentives, then it's this weird spot where it's like, even if I care about this brand a lot that is only offering me a product or service, it's hard to justify, again, the time investment compared to this one that is investing monetarily. And so I think that what brands need to understand is that having a marketing budget for influencers is crucial. Like I have run something called the Creator League in Austin, which is like a meetup of different creators. And it's a very consistent thing where we're all kind of on the same page that, yeah, I mean, we are doing this as a business. And so if there are companies who are just like, oh yeah, we would love for you to post about this for us. And it's like, cool, what's your budget? And they're like, oh, sorry, we don't have any budget. Like that's just such an immediate turn off for a creator because it isn't respecting the creator's time and likely the years that they have put into building their craft and their ability to tell stories and their ability to have influence. And also understanding that the value that is added by the creator is not fully captured just by like say direct sales generated by posting on their personal page. Like in the example of Body Spec, the vast majority of the value that I am adding is via their usage of my content as an ad that has now reached millions of people and likely converted to, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in sales, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And content creators, are replacing traditional ad agencies in so many ways, right? Why go out and pay so much in production for an ad team to create content for you? Just find that awesome nano influencer, micro influencer who's already creating this awesome content and has a relationship with the community that you're trying to engage. This is why really, brands really need to think about the word partnership, right? And influencer partnerships as opposed to just marketing where it's a transactional relationship. All right, let's move from the gym to Microsoft. You are an engineer also by trade, and you are very familiar with the world of big tech. I really think that a lot of the lessons we can learn from content creators in the B2C space can be applied to the B2B world. So, Patrick, if I am an aspiring content creator in the tech space, I'm doing cybersecurity, I'm doing AI, I'm doing, large language modeling, anything like that, what can you teach or what advice can you really give to those content creators as they think about how they serve their community and how they can structure their content strategy?
Yeah, good question. So when it comes to the world of big tech, obviously financials are a lot more manageable on the business front. And what I'm getting at is like if you're comparing like early up and coming startup to, a massive big brand. That massive big brand no doubt has like a massive marketing budget. And so in that way, it's like if and when you have the opportunity to have a partnership with a big brand, whether it's Microsoft, Apple, Oracle, Facebook, whatever, they're going to have great budget set aside for influencers. In terms of connecting with the people at those companies, that one can be a little bit harder. It depends on who your connection network includes. Oftentimes, these companies will either have like a dedicated department within the company that is handling creator partnerships, and or they will work through various creator agencies. And again, if you work with a company that is big enough that they can hire a full-blown creator agency to then find and hire you, again, that's a good sign that like this is probably a company that has quite a bit of budget that they can allocate to this. And so it's worth it for you to have as a creator packages that you offer. So rather than just having like, okay, let's do like a one-off piece of content together, that's something where it's like definitely go for a long-term relationship because one, they probably want it, and two, they probably have the budget that they can accommodate it. So it's important to think through like what are all of the different ways that you as a creator can add value, not just a single piece of content, but maybe it's multiple pieces of content per month. Maybe it's multiple platforms. Maybe it's multiple types of content, video and picture. Think about things like the paid media ad usage rights, where it's like you have the payment for the content itself, but then you also have the payment for the ability for that brand to continuously use your content over time as marketing. It's almost like the social media equivalent of what television did with residuals, where every single time a television commercial ran or runs now still on television, the people in that commercial get paid again because it's the continuous usage of the name, image, and likeness of the creator. That same equivalent exists in the social media space via paid media ad usage rights. So those are kind of like things to think about in the structure of a deal, and that's something that both the business and the creator should be thinking about. And then in terms of how to kind of align with big tech in the world of like AI and large language models and things you were talking about, it's important to know like where your brand aligns with that brand. Like what is their mission? What is your mission? How do these two connect? And those should absolutely be included in things like your pitch as a creator. Like every time I'm making a pitch, yes, I have kind of like a structure or a template that I'm using to pitch myself, but I'm also trying to directly connect who I am to who this company and brand is so that the person on the other end of that email or Instagram message or whatever it is can see as quickly and seamlessly as possible why is Patrick or why are you the right fit for my brand. Make it as easy as possible so they don't have to think through it.
Absolutely. Finally, Patrick, let's finish up with looking ahead. What are you most excited about in the space of social right now? Any new platform or any new type of content style that you're really paying attention to?
Honestly, I don't think there's a ton of new styles that have emerged, at least in the last several years, just in terms of like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube have kind of stayed the staples for many years now. There's this chance that TikTok is going away literally within like a week or two. We don't know for sure yet. And if that happens, then something else will probably pop up, or people will switch over to YouTube. I don't know if you know this, but TikTok was banned in India. And after that happened, the viewership of short form content shifted over to YouTube Reels. So I believe that there's now more India-based YouTube Reel viewership than America-based. I'm not 100% on that stat, but I think that's true. And so that could be kind of like a good indicator of what would happen in America if TikTok does end up going away. But that's all to say, like short form and long term are both here to stay. It's just a matter of like figuring out which one or ones you do the best in, and typically having kind of like a multi-platform strategy is the best way to go, at least in the beginning, so that you can figure out like what hits the best for you. Um, but yeah, for me, it's just like I've had so many different types of content over time that have done well, but the longer and longer that I do it, it's more and more about like what's sustainable for me to continuously put out over time. And for me, the thing is simply what do I personally enjoy the most that will still add value within my niche to my audience. So the answer for that for me is fitness technology and fitness science kind of encompasses all of that. Where like I just genuinely enjoy that, so I'm going to keep making content around that. But in the coming months, I'll be doing both long form and short form for that. Whereas historically, pretty much all of my fitness science content has been short form. So kind of delving into that long form realm as well for science and tech.
Patrick Lyons, as always, full of wisdom. Thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Have a good one.
You too.
What do you think? Was that good?